and thank you so much for joining me along with the co-founders of the Virtual Death Doula Network for our Death Salon today. We're so glad you're here. I wanted to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today and do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll drop into our program. So our agenda today, what we want to talk about beyond introductions is advanced care directives, COVID resources, the Virtual Death Doula Network and other virtual resources, conversation starters, and what being a virtual death doula is, what that's all about, how it came to be. And we'll have time at the end of that for Q&A. So I wanted to see if people can, if you're willing to participate in this way, to see if you can raise your hands by tapping the More button on your phone or on the lower right part of your screen where it says More or reactions, and see if you can do a hand raise or a thumbs up. Great. And if you're not figuring that out and you would like to, pop something in the chat and we will help you figure that out. The reason I ask is we're going to be checking to see who's in the room in a little bit, and this will help us do that. So thanks very much. If you have questions that come up during our presentation, we invite you to save them until the end because we do have time for Q&A, as I said. And we would like you at this moment, if you would, to go into the chat box now and put your name and where you're coming from today, so we can sort of see who's here. And as you're doing that, I would like to turn this over to one of the co-founders of the Virtual Death Doula Network, Emily.
Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for being here. I feel so lucky to share this space with everyone. So thank you. I also want to say good morning or good afternoon or good evening. It's evening for me. And I wanted to open this call with a little bit of meditation to set the tone for these topics that we're about to talk about. This is optional, so of course, feel free to sit this out. This is a selected and slightly edited selection from Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. So we're going to do this first by getting comfortable where we're sitting or kneeling or standing, and gently just kind of, roll out any little cricks you have in your bones. Just get comfortable here. If you're more comfortable with your camera off, that's totally fine. So our aim here is to flood our bodies with consciousness. Close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. And we'll choose different parts of our bodies to focus attention on briefly. Hands, feet, arms, legs, abdomen, so on. And we're going to feel the life energy inside of those parts as intensely as we can. And we're going to stay with each part for about 5 seconds or so. So begin with our hands. Our hands are flooded with consciousness, and we're feeling that life force within our hands intensely. And now onto our feet, our arms, our legs, our abdomen, chest, and our head. Now let this attention run through the body like a wave a few times from head to toe and back again. After that, feel that inner body in its totality as a single field of energy, and be intensely present with it. Don't be concerned if the mind occasionally succeeds in drawing your attention out of the body and you lose yourself in some thought. As soon as you notice that this has happened, just return your attention to the inner body. All right, let us come back to this Zoom space. Super quick meditation to set us up for this topic, these topics rather. And just one more selection I'll read really quickly. This is about the art of listening. When listening to another person, don't just listen with your mind, listen with your whole body. Feel the energy field of your inner body as you listen. That takes attention away from the thinking and creates a still space that enables you to truly listen without the mind interfering. You are giving the other person space, the space to be. It is the most precious gift you can give. So again, that was from Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and I'll turn it back to Willow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. What a beautiful way to start our salon today. Gorgeous. We would like to know a little bit about you. So if you would use your emoticons or hand raising, whatever you feel like using, we were curious who here is already an end-of-life provider of some kind, either a doula or hospice worker, medical care provider. There's a few visual hand raises. There we go. Yep, end-of-life doulas. And who here is looking for support for themselves or someone who is facing end of life or preparing for end of life? Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. Oh, lovely. And nice to see people from so far away. Jules, wow. That's a lot to carry, a dying daughter. I hope you find valuable resources here. I hope you all do. I'd like to just briefly introduce myself. As I said, my name is Willow, and I am an end-of-life doula, an educator, an advocate. I'm partnering with a hospice locally to develop an 11th hour vigil sitting training and lots of other end-of-life activities that I've been doing full-time now for a number of years, and was probably one of the first people rushing up into line when the Virtual Death Doula Network got started, saying, I want to be a provider. I want to join this amazing group. And then I met the people who actually founded it and was even more impressed. And I want to give you the opportunity to meet them now. We have Daniel, Andrea, and Emily. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about themselves and how they got here. Daniel?
Hello, I'm Daniel Shaw, and I'm a part of the Virtual Death Doula Network. I got to be a part. I don't want to go into it too much because Andrea's going to tell you all about it a little bit later, but it was her idea, and she invited me along on the trip at the beginning. It started at right around when the pandemic began. But again, not getting into too much detail, and I've been blessed to be a part of this organization and help it grow, and it's fantastic. I'm so lucky to be a part of this and work with the people here, and I don't want to take up too much time on this. You'll get to hear more from me later in just a bit. So thank you, and I will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you, Daniel. So grateful for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much. Andrea?
Hi, I am Andrea Sugar, and I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of the Virtual Death Doula Network. I feel very privileged to be here with all of you um, and grateful for the wonderful people that I have with me that is making this dream come true. My purpose in this life is to serve, and the work we do is a beautiful way to do that. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you our vision as we move through this. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to connect more in a bit.
Thanks, Andrea. So grateful for you. Emily?
Hello. Yeah, I think that me, Andrea, and Daniel all connected in that way that we really do feel like we're here to serve, and that is our passion. And we really come together on that front. I live in Dorset, England. I'm American, but I trained to be an end-of-life doula in 2016 through the University of Vermont. And I've been doing that work ever since then. And I just recently opened a center, which I'm sitting in right now, in Dorset for end-of-life education and resources and meditation as well. So again, I want to cut that short, but I'm just so excited to be here with you all on this call. So thank you for listening. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Emily. And thanks for increasing the diversity of our time zones. It's pretty exciting. And now I would like to swing it back to Daniel about preparing.
Thank you, Willow. Yeah, I am here to talk to you today about advanced care planning and advanced directives in particular, some more of the mundane activities associated with end-of-life work, but very important nonetheless. Advanced directives, they're written legal instructions where you dictate what your preferences are for medical care in case you're unable to make those decisions for yourself. For instance, well, they basically guide the choices that your doctors and caregivers are going to be giving if you wind up terminally ill, seriously injured, in a coma, late stage dementia, or any other near end of life spaces where you're unable to communicate your wishes effectively. And they're not just for older adults, because end of life situations can happen at any age, as you know, Jules mentioned earlier in our chat. You never know when your time is coming. And by planning ahead, you can make sure that you can get the medical care you want. You can avoid unnecessary suffering and relieve your caregivers of any decision-making burdens that they might not be prepared to make, particularly in moments of crisis or grief. Done properly, these advanced care directives will enable those people that are caring about you to make sure that they can honor your well-being and honor the choices about the care that you want to receive. So medical or healthcare power of attorney is a type of advanced directive in which you name a person to make the decisions for you when you're unable to do so. And that's what when I think of advanced directive, that's what I'm thinking of. There's obviously the paperwork behind that, but it's really the selection of an individual who's going to be making these decisions for you. And depending upon where you live, they may be called different things: healthcare agent, healthcare proxy, representative. Name is not super important. But choosing the person to act, choosing who you choose is very important. Because even if you've got you could have 100 pages written up about the care that you want, and there are still situations that you cannot cover that you will need somebody to use their best judgment to make a call on your behalf. And you want to make sure that that person fully understands your will and your wishes and is ready to advocate for you to make sure that you get the care that you want. There are some requirements as far as who can and cannot be. It's mostly who cannot be a healthcare agent for yourself, and that's your doctor cannot be it, or any medical person. This also varies by state by state. So like I live in Oregon. In addition to the doctor, anybody that's employed at if you're in a healthcare facility, anybody who's employed there can't be it either. But that's something that we would have to look at for wherever you happen to live, because again, these things are on a state by state basis. The person that you name can be a partner, family member, friend, and you can choose alternates also, and encourage you to do so, because if that person's not available, you want to make sure that somebody is there to act on your behalf. But how do you choose? So that's right. determining how you want to set up your advanced directive. This is where you have to sort of go in and look at what you value and make a decision based upon that. Sort of consider, how important is your own independence and self-sufficiency, and what circumstances might it not make sense for you to continue living your life. Which treatments would you want to extend your life, and would you want them in any situation or all situations? I mean, would you want a treatment only if a cure is possible, perhaps? Because while this is about time with this advanced care preparation, it's really about how you want to live in these final months or however long you have up until the end of life, because until you are actually dead, you are still very much alive, and you want to maximize your quality of life during that time. So questions that you might use to decide who you might choose. Reflect on where you're from, what your life has brought you joy and meaning, what has brought fear or concern. Go into your belief or faith system. And often these, this is sort of the same things that you'd be reflecting upon currently also. And you also, look at where you're at as far as terms of short-term goals, long-term goals. What do you still want to get out of life? What's on your bucket list? And how might that impact and influence decisions as far as that goes? But really the important thing is sort of looking ahead and what is going to make life worth living and continue living, and what might come up that might make life not worth living. Like, what's not acceptable for you? Like, what are you, for example, if you have cancer per se, and you have an option to have chemo, and the chemo might get you to a year with all the associated chemo side effects, maybe your estimated time would be 6 months without the chemo, but it would be without chemo and all that goes along with it. Those are the hard questions that you need to consider and take into account when you're thinking about what you want to set up for yourself. So you have to sort of like define for yourself what you consider suffering, and how do you want to lay that out? Okay, and those are obviously going to be different for everybody. Those are hard, but ultimately very important questions to do it. And then once you have that, then you're able to actually get into the meat of the advanced care directive itself. And so when we get into how, okay, so what does this look like? This is when you're going to actually be specifying what actions you want doctors to take or not take. So you can include things like CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. All medical professionals, if you stop breathing or your heart stops, will try to get you going again, unless you specifically say not to. So that's one of the things that will be taken into consideration. Mechanical ventilation. In this day of COVID is very much mechanical ventilation happens quite a bit towards the end of life, and you need to consider if that's something that you're willing to do. Tube feeding falls into this too. You can get to the point where you're unable to feed yourself. Do you want to, how long would you want to continue with tube feeding? Dialysis, if your kidneys fail. These are all, you can see sort of a theme here. They're all different ways of extending your life through mechanical means when your body's no longer able to do so. And you have to sort of consider, how's that going to impact your quality of life? Antibiotics, antiviral medications, this goes into the chemo example that I use. Like how aggressively do you want to treat whatever condition that you're working with? Or are you more content to just go to palliative care, where you're more managing your comfort and the symptoms, and just allowing whatever disease you have to run its course? At this time with advanced care directives, you also can set up organ or tissue donations if you want to, or body donations. You don't have to have an advanced directive to have a do not resuscitate order. This goes back to the CPR. You can declare a do not resuscitate or do not intubate if you don't want that, and your doctor will respect that, and they'll put the orders in your medical record. So that's, if you do not necessarily need to set up an advanced directive if that's the only thing you're concerned about. Yeah, it's still but okay, so that'll get into a little bit example. Again, state by state, I Googled before we started and brought up the Oregon advanced directive. So I've filled out, let me share my screen so you all can see this and just get an idea of what one of these looks like real quick. Share screen, there it is. So I have one of these filled out, of course. And they're really short. again, based upon where you're at, but they're all going to be about the same. And here you can see where you're, you know, the main thing, who am I? Who is my healthcare representative? Again, that's the most important piece on this. Instructions. So this is, you know, you can explicitly say, you know, only follow my instructions, or my instructions are guidelines, but my rep has the final call. Or if you can make it whatever you want. That's what I'm saying. You can be as explicit or add anything you want to one of these. And it does have some sort of stuff already pre-populated effectively as far as decisions that you might want to make things so you don't have to just come up with it off the top of your head and write it down. They've got, you know, specific things when you're close to death as far as intubation. Do you want it or do you not want it? Or do you want your, you know, what healthcare provider? But other life support, this would be ventilators or something, tube feeding, other life supports. Oh yeah, excuse me. So this is if you're permanently unconscious, or if you're close to death, or if you're in advanced progressive illness like dementia, cancer, other extraordinary suffering. So these are, again, require you to go back and go through those deep reflections to really understand what you're committing to when you do one of these. And that's it. Witness it, and you're done. So once you've got it filled out correctly, you want to keep the originals in a safe place. Make sure you give a copy to your doctor, and any other health, and obviously the healthcare agent that you've got working on your behalf. You want them to have it. Anybody else who has previous records of your advanced directive, because you can replace these whenever you want. You don't, if you want to change it, go and change it. You just get rid of the old one, let everybody know that you're using the new one. Yeah, you can change them at any time, and you know, obviously make sure your doctor knows as well. I guess one other, well, there are a few cases when you should, in general, sort of guidelines for when you want to do an advanced directive. If you get a new diagnosis of any, you know, a significant diagnosis that includes a terminal date in it. If you have a change of marital status, that's a good idea to do it also. Or if nothing else is going on in your life, every 10 years or so is also a good time to go back and just sort of reevaluate where you're at, and if you want to make any changes. I think one other thing to mention, there's also a document associated with advanced healthcare planning called a physician order for life-sustaining treatment, or POLST. And this is for people that have already been diagnosed with a serious illness. It doesn't replace other directives, but it's rather, it serves as doctor-ordered instructions, kind of like a prescription, to make sure that in case of an emergency, you receive the treatment that you prefer still. So it's sort of doctor augmentation to whatever you've already put into your advanced directive. And that's why it's important to make sure that your advanced directive is, you know, your medical team knows about it as well. Because that POLST will stay with you. If you're at a hospital or nursing home, that document's going to be posted near your bed. If you're living at home or in a hospice care facility, it'll be right where all the emergency personnel or medical team can see it. And it too will include guidance along the lines of what we've talked about already, as far as resuscitation or ventilation or tube feeding. And it will also say, if you have advanced directives, what they are, who they have, who you have selected as your care agent and everything. And like advanced directives, they can be canceled or updated as well. And I believe, yeah, that's all I wanted to really say about advanced directives for you today. And again, say whatever questions you have, I'll be happy to answer them later on. So thank you very much. And Willow, back to you.
Thanks, Daniel. I also wanted to let folks know that some of the resources that we'll share with you are various websites, and we will email those out to you after this, so you don't have to try to write down these web addresses. Just wanted to let you know we can send those out at a later time. So I want to talk to you a little bit about COVID resources in particular, and for a number of reasons. We are already dealing with such a weird social environment. It's already kind of a strange world that we're living in. And to go through the process of needing care or facing end of life or dealing with intense grief In many cases, when funerals can't take place or you can't attend, or you have friends who are experiencing that, there is so much need for connection. And what I love about the COVID resources are, these are all about ways of finding connection, of making that human moment possible when we can't physically do it. One of the best COVID resources is, of course, this network. And Andrea is going to tell us more about it later, but it's beautiful to have the understanding that people can still provide care virtually. You can still attend someone virtually. You can still be present with them, play music for them, read their mail to them. It's not the same as holding a hand or being in the same physical space, but it is a way of connection. There are a number of resources I wanted to talk about finances, because for a lot of people in this COVID scenario too, finances are a problem. People don't necessarily have the same financial resources that they've had. There's a little bit of financial instability, and looking at ways of how do we affordably take care of our dead? How can we do that when the modern funeral industry is, for one, cost prohibitive and also very environmentally tricky? If you look up the stats, it's a little dizzying. So thinking about different associations like the National Home Funeral Alliance, this is a really fantastic resource. They will tell you all about your rights to a body. People don't have to be embalmed. They don't have to, there's only 6 or 7 states where you actually need to have a mortuary involved, and that's for transportation and paperwork. Whereas in every other state, you can bring your dead home, you can do your home funeral, you can wash their body, you can prepare it for burial, you can do every bit of that yourself. And this is something that's a social healing, but it's also just a financial reality that mortuaries are overwhelmed. It's really expensive. Some places in California were actually charging people to house bodies because they were so far backed up in body disposal that they had to rent units to keep corpses in because of the pandemic. So if you think about one of the resources as being money, is that we can do our own home funerals, and green burials are not always cheap, but they are generally a lot cheaper than a straight up funeral. So the Green Burial Council, Canada also has a Green Burial Council of Canada. Those are fantastic resources for finding places where you can be buried naturally. Where I live in Virginia, you can be buried in the county here, and most people don't know that you just have to be outside of a certain distance of the city limits and a distance from a water source. And beyond that, you can be buried dirt cheap here, literally. You can take the body from the hospital and take it straight to its burial site and never have other hands touching your beloved. So the National Home Funeral Alliance is amazing, and so is the Funeral Consumers Alliance. They are people who advocate for fair and equitable disclosure of the funeral industry's costs and what they're doing, and they advocate for fairness. And if you think you're being taken advantage of, or you think a grieving family is being taken advantage of, the Funeral Consumers Alliance is a great resource. A lot of these are in the US, but many of them have a counterpart in Canada and probably some in Europe. And if any of these resources you're looking for in your area, that's also something you can reach out to the Virtual Death Doula Network for and say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of resource and I live in Saskatchewan, what's out here? And we may not know, but we'll certainly turn over the stones that we know to turn, and we know a lot. 2 of the other organizations that I feel are very essential during COVID times are the National End of Life Doula Alliance, NEDA, and INELDA, which is the International Doula Alliance. So both of these organizations, as well as the 2 that I've already mentioned, have lots of online resources, lots of assistance for people on many of the issues that come up. We will be sharing with you the NHPCO, the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, their website is comprehensive with just about everything you could imagine, including a place where you can download your advanced directive that Daniel was talking about by state. So you can enter the state and get the form that is right for your state specifically. They also have a whole handout on end-of-life decisions and what they mean. So some of the things that Daniel was talking about in terms of the medical choices that you have around to receive or deny different kinds of assistance, this booklet goes through each of those and lets you know what they actually are. So that's a really great resource. Another one that has been coming up, I heard it on NPR, I've seen it in the doula stuff, I've heard it in a couple of other news sources. And so I went online and tried it myself and I was blown away. Free will. You can do your will online in like 10 minutes, even if it's complicated. It was mind-blowing. It is an amazing resource. So if you know somebody or you yourself just want to have something down, maybe not like the perfect thing, but the good enough thing, or even the perfect thing, you can do it there as well. There's a lot of excellent, excellent resources there. The other one that feels very important is 5 Wishes. And this one, I'm going to tell you, if you kind of ignore everything else, grab onto 5 Wishes, Google that, check out their website. Here's the thing. They have a document that helps you really outline not just your medical care, but your spiritual care, your social care, what's important to you about a memorial or not, different things like that. And it's very easy to understand. It's very comprehensive and it's legally recognized in every state. Although there are, it says on their website, I can't remember how many, it's maybe 6 or 7 states ask for an additional, just kind of like a certification that gets notarized to make it work for their state. But 5 Wishes is incredible. They have documents there that are conversation guides that help you talk to other people about filling out their 5 wishes. You can buy them in packets of 5. You can get them as a downloadable document. But this is something that is really easy for other people to understand. It's very comprehensive, and it also starts conversations about what it means to be living. Daniel was talking about the advanced directive and talking about it as end of life, but it's also pertinent if you're in an accident and you're in a coma for a week. You know, somebody is still needing to make these decisions for you. So it's not just end of life. This is thinking about quality of life. Hospice. People think of hospice as like the vultures coming in for the kill, and hospice are the people who are bringing in the life. They are bringing in the energy of presence, of connection, of providing your wishes to the best of their abilities. Encouraging people to open to hospice much sooner is a great idea, and a lot of people don't know it's free. I just was taking care of a woman in her mid-90s. Her daughter is a registered nurse and educates other nurses, and she didn't know hospice was free. She knew that it existed, but she didn't know that that resource was that available and that it could also be tailored to their needs and be graduated as their needs changed. And it could be as simple as the chaplain coming by once a week, the social worker coming by and talking to the kids. There's all of these ways that hospice can give you incredible free gifts that you really can't beat it. And they are all about helping you fully live until you die. And when you die, that you have the best possible death, whatever that means to you. You can't get better cheerleaders on your side than hospice. So I'm going to wrap that up for now. I could go on. I've got pages of resources, but for COVID, those feel really important. There's also the Minnesota Threshold Network, MTN. They have a website and they also have a resource document on loss. I think it's called Loss, Grief, and Love during COVID. And a lot of their resources are local, but a lot of them are national too. And a lot of what they have is about how to regulate your nervous system. If you're feeling that brain chemistry imbalance that's uncomfortable or anxious, ways of just calming the body down, ways of being present, ways of really listening, and also just hands-on resources for people. So they're another great place to check out. From that, I'm going to transition this a little bit to just talking some more about conversation starters. There is a website called the Conversation Project, and you can go and download a conversation guide specific to what you're dealing with and specific to the age group with which you're dealing with it. So that's another fantastic resource for talking about how people want to live. Daniel, Andrea, Emily, do any of you have things to add about conversations and how to engage people?
Well, you know, one of the things that we do strive to do as part of the Virtual Death Doula Network is to work on removing the taboo associated with death and talking about death. It is a topic that tends to send people running rather quickly. And I think part of it is that culturally, a lot of us are sort of taught that death is bad. And I would like to reframe it with death. Death is neither bad nor good. It is a natural part of the life cycle, but death is hard. Death is very, very hard. So while death isn't bad, it's hard and people don't want to have those conversations. So what we strive to do is make these conversations a little bit easier by kind of removing some of the taboo about talking about death in general and knowing that there's all kinds of ways to explore it and it doesn't have to be so scary. And that's one of the things that we're here to do, is to support those conversations.
Yeah, and I would just add, like, in helping to set up safe spaces in which to do so as well, because that's a part of that is making sure you're in a place where you're ready to receive and discuss those conversations, and that is sort of the setting that you can set up for yourself to make sure that you can be ready to have those conversations just with the physical space around you.
One of my favorite resources recently has been the Morbid Curiosity Deck. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it is such a fun conversation starter game thing. I also have the Death Deck, which is pretty fun as well, but I got to tell you, I love the Morbid Curiosity one. It's a great conversation starter. It's a really fun way to engage people in the conversation about death and start breaking some of those taboos, like Andrea was talking about. When we don't talk about death, or we don't want to talk about death, we end up becoming subject to whatever other people want to happen to us or what they think is best. So being clear about how we want to live just feels so essential.
And I think that the last thing Willow just said is really crucial, is that while we're talking about death, it's really about how we want to live. So while we're talking about what dying may look like, what it might feel like, what may happen, we're also talking about living, because like we've said or heard several times, is that we are living up until the very moment that we die. So as doulas, one of the things we do is make sure that people get to live the way they'd like up until the minute they die. And then, like Willow said, to have the best death possible, whatever that means to them. So while these hard talks are about death, they're also very much about living and about the dying person's autonomy, which is something that's important because people can start to lose that with progressive terminal diseases, with dementia. And so we seek to help empower people to be as much in control as they would like, and to be able to have this be what they would like.
Beautiful. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, Andrea, to talk about the network and how it came to be and what its trajectory is right now, what's happening. It's exciting, y'all.
Thank you. So this all started as kind of a little idea I had. I was all set to have a doula client and ready to make our first appointment, and the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden I thought, there's no way I can, and this was at the very beginning where, I mean, we still don't know a lot, but we knew nothing then. And there's no way I can walk into a dying person's home at this time, because I can't chance possibly giving them COVID and complicating things. I wouldn't want to risk myself as well. And so I thought, what am I going to do? Like, oh shit. Because now first of all, there's people dying all over the place. That was already happening, but now there's people dying rapidly and people are scared and nobody knows what to do. So I called up Daniel, who is as a result of a 10-minute conversation we had. That's kind of what catapulted me into becoming an end-of-life doula. So I called Daniel and I presented my idea to him and I said, would you like to do this with me? Because I think that we can make this work. I think that we can still reach people even though we can't be there physically. And Daniel was really open to it. And he said, hey, I'd like to call Emily. And all three of us went to the University of Vermont Medical School end-of-life doula training. So we've all been trained, as did Willow. So we're all trained the same way. And so the three of us got together and we just started talking and trying to figure out how do we do this? How do we evolve with the world? And so the Virtual Death Doula Network came to be, and we realized that we could reach people through technology. And even though we aren't physically present, we are able to coach family members, teach family members, caregivers, friends, and loved ones to do some of the things we would do in our absence while we are still present via Zoom or FaceTime or just a phone call, whatever it is that works for the person. And then, as we did this, it became very apparent that this wasn't just about how to help people through COVID, and that this was a much bigger dream for me, and that it became about worldwide service, because there are people dying alone everywhere. There are people in assisted living facilities, in hospitals, on the street, in their homes that don't have family, don't have loved ones, don't have access to care. And we are incredibly committed to serving everybody, regardless of socioeconomic status. And we want to be as accessible as we can. We are accessible to the hearing impaired community. We operate on a sliding scale to ensure that our services are available to anyone and everyone who needs them. We are also incredibly committed to respecting clients from across a variety of backgrounds. And we realize that death is a very intensely personal experience, and it's shaped by people's lifetimes and beliefs. And we want to create a space that celebrates the diversity of our clients and our doulas and their loved ones. So we endeavor to honor everyone by including all perspectives from backgrounds that vary by race, ethnicity, social background, religion, gender, age, disability, sexual orientation, veteran status, national origin. We really believe that we can serve on a wide world scale. And that is kind of what we're doing. And as we evolved this, we realized, this was even bigger than a business. And we are in the process of becoming a nonprofit. We have got everything except for we are waiting for the IRS to finalize our 501c3 filing. But once that's complete, we will be a fully functioning nonprofit so that we can serve people far and wide. And what's exciting is that because it's virtual, we have an international scope. We have Emily, who's in the UK and is one of our co-founders. So we're already operating in Europe, and we are going to continue to broaden our reach so that we can kind of serve everywhere, no matter what, because really when it comes down to it, nobody has to die alone. Their resources and their support. And that's, one of the biggest things is people don't know about this kind of resource or this kind of support. People aren't really aware of doulas or end-of-life doulas. And that is another piece that we work hard to do, is to provide education about what is an end-of-life doula and how can we support you, and do you even need to be dying to have one? And then as things have evolved, in addition to all of the traditional doula services we offer, we've expanded to offer death, anxiety, and grief support, because as COVID ramped up, we had a lot of people coming to us, not because they were dying, but because they were having great anxiety about the possibility of dying because they had COVID, or anxiety about family members dying, and they just really needed to talk about death and talk about that anxiety. So we've added an additional service where we are here to support people through grief, and everybody moves through it differently. However, there are some tools that can be helpful, and just to have that support to be able to express your grief is profound. And that's something that I've learned, not just professionally, but personally. So we're excited that even though it is challenging to not be in person and not be able to say, put a hand on a shoulder or hold someone's hand, we can still be here and show up with all of our doula hearts, even over Zoom. And then again, we have a focus on helping assist family members to learn how to do gentle touch massage, to be aware of what near-death awareness and near-death experiences look like. So they are prepped and primed for the changes that happened. And then we are still also available to be there for respite work, for vigil work over Zoom, over FaceTime, over the phone, whatever it takes. And we do offer in-person services as we are able. And I don't know if Daniel or Emily have anything that they would like to add to that, or Willow.
I want you to say something about the nonprofit status and what you hope to do with that.
Well, as soon as the IRS files our 501c3, we have a letter ready actually to Jeff Bezos's ex-wife, because we are going to seek to look for donations of technology, not just financial donations, but tablets, iPhones, iPads, whatever it is that people will be able to use to connect to our network of doulas. And then we will donate these to a point person at a facility, even a residence, if it's a private person, but we will get the technology to the people that need it so that we can then serve them. And also I mentioned briefly, we work on a pay what you will basis so that there's no one we would turn down, but the people that do graciously and kindly donate above and beyond what our fee is, or just in general out of the goodness of their heart, we use that money to help people who don't have the resources. Because again, we are first and foremost committed to service and to being there for people, regardless of where they are at with that.
Thanks, Andrea. Daniel or Emily, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just say a little bit about that, just sort of the background behind the process of getting for the nonprofit to make that happen. This is the first time I've been involved with nonprofits before, but never in the creation of one. And doing that was eye-opening and learned a ton. Like, because for those that aren't familiar, it involves writing the bylaws, which is basically laying out how you want your business to run. And it's not something like, we've done a business plan also, but the bylaws is a very specific nonprofit thing that really helped us get in and say, how are we actually going to make this happen and everything like that, which was great. I mean, it was a lot of effort, but it was well worth it. And yeah, we do have all the pieces in place that we actually are technically a nonprofit in Colorado. We are good to go there, but nationwide we need to do the 501c3. But even we have our full board. We got our third and final board member just in the last couple of weeks. And we're ready to go and very excited to get that good news back from the IRS and and flip that switch and get going on this.
And I guess the last thing I would add is that's one of the things that's been so incredible about this, is that we really have built it from the ground up, out of just this little seed of an idea. And it's been really inspiring to be able to work with Daniel and Emily and Willow and to see how we've been able to grow this and how we're really going to be able to reach a lot of people with this and to serve a lot of people. And that just feels very, very exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. A couple of more things that I wanted to share with you before we transition into some Q&A. I like the website healgrief.org. What they say about themselves is it's a social support network that's there when everyone else goes away and the real grieving begins. Everything we do is inspired by our core belief that no one should ever grieve alone. Heal Grief provides the tools and resources to guide one's journey with grief into a healthy personal growth. And they have online support groups. They also have different kinds of art projects that they engage around death and grief. Just really beautiful stuff. And also Reimagine. Reimagine was holding in-person festivals that were amazing and doing all the, like death positive stuff and all the cutting edge technology of body disposals and all of these different things. And they really transitioned beautifully online, where they still have festivals and various kinds of offerings and death art and all kinds of neat stuff. Their mission is to spark a community-wide exploration of death and celebration of life through creativity and conversation. So they're another group that's really fun to listen to. They've also had candlelight vigils off and on throughout COVID for people who've been dying from COVID. They've been doing all kinds of meditations and mini festivals, and their website's just full of interesting events. And the other website, if you haven't come across it yet, is Order of the Good Death. This is Caitlin Dowdy, who's a mortician, and many of her collaborators who are spearheading a death positive movement. And their website is fun and funny, but profoundly resourceful, and has all kinds of great things. Their mission is, it says, the order is about making death a part of your life. That means committing to staring down your death fears, whether it be your own death, the death of those you love, the pain of dying, the afterlife or the lack thereof, grief, corpses, bodily decomposition, or all of the above, accepting that death itself is natural, but the death anxiety and terror of modern culture are not. They have on their website a opportunity for you to sign on as a death positive person. You can sign on as an individual or as a group, and it's a really beautiful testament that you agree to. It starts with, whether you've participated in the death positive movement for years or are brand new, we wanted to offer you a way to boldly state your intentions and participation. I'll share this with you. There, I think that's doing it. So here's your bold intentions of participation. 1, I believe that by hiding death and dying behind closed doors, we do more harm than good to our society. 2, I believe that the culture of silence around death should be broken through discussion, gatherings, art, innovation, and scholarship. 3, I believe that talking about and engaging with my inevitable death is not morbid, but displays a natural curiosity about the human condition. I believe that the dead body is not dangerous and that everyone should be empowered, should they wish to be involved in care for their own dead. I believe that the laws that govern death, dying, and end-of-life care should ensure that a person's wishes are honored regardless of sexual, gender, racial, or religious identity. I believe that my death should be handled in a way that does not do great harm to the environment. I believe that my family and friends should know my end-of-life wishes and that I should have the necessary paperwork to back up those wishes. I believe that my open, honest advocacy around death can make a difference and can change culture. So I invite you, if you are called, to join that movement. That is orderofthegooddeath.com. And now I'd like to open it up to any questions that people have, particularly about the network itself or anything else that's on your heart that you want to share, or resources that you're looking for that maybe we haven't talked about, or anything else. We want to turn it over to you folks.
I'll go ahead and start, since I'll just jump in. I am not currently a death doula, but I'm very, very interested in it. I've thought for a long time about it. And so that's why I'm here. And I heard that maybe all of you that have spoken went or got certified at the University of Vermont. Can you tell me why you chose that program? I know there are not many programs, but can you tell me why you chose that program, please?
I'll say first, because I feel pretty passionate about this. I took several courses, and I think each course can offer something different, obviously, but one thing unique to UVM is that they are an accredited university. And in my personal opinion, I think since death doulas don't really require a certification or any sort of training specifically, it is tremendously helpful to have that stamp of approval from an actual university, because that is the value that, aside from the education, of course, but that's the value it can provide, the training can provide. So if a client comes and says, what are your credentials, for instance, you can point to that as being an actual accredited university. Not that the other training programs are in any way like bad or not good or anything, but I think that if you're looking for a training program that kind of speaks to your experience and your expertise, that's one quality that UVM can offer. And also just the program is excellent. It's amazing. Francesca Arnoldi is truly an angel from above. Like, she is so passionate about this field, and it is both heart-centered and intellectual and stimulating, and kind of has the best of both worlds, in my opinion. It has like the heart and also the soul and the intellectual book smarty side. So that's how I feel about it. I'm curious what you guys think about it.
Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, well, Emily, I spoke to you when I was looking to train, and you obviously highly suggested UVM, and I looked into it, and I've done training in a variety of things in a lot of different places, and the UVM program is amazing. Like, it is a very, very high quality education program, and just to make things even better, like, the price is fantastic. Just being being UVM, the program is 8 weeks long, and it is solid. It's an online program. It was online pre-pandemic already, so that it was already set up that way and not sort of pushed into an online format after the fact. And yeah, just the overall quality of it is top notch, and very, very economical to boot. It's like it was a no-brainer once I looked it up after, Emily suggested it. It can't speak highly of it enough.
And in turn, I ended up there because of Daniel and a 10-minute conversation that we had. And after looking at many of the other programs, this one, again, like Emily said, it just seemed really rooted in not just the heartfelt aspect, but also in the practical and scientific aspects of it, because it is done through not just UVM, but their medical school. And since we, the Virtual Death Doula Network, have partnered with UVM as part of what we do, so that's been really wonderful as well. We actually also offer the Virtual Death Doula Network offers a Doula 101 workshop that is meant for people that are curious about becoming a death doula and maybe aren't sure they're ready to do the whole big program, or even if it's really what they want to know more. So that's something that we offer through our website, and it's an hour with Daniel, Emily, and I going through all the kind of nitty-gritty stuff as sort of a preparatory step.
I also want to quickly, thank you, Andrea. I also want to quickly shout out another amazing learning opportunity that happens to be free. It's a dementia training, and it's through the University of Tasmania. It's all online as well. I took it several times because there's just so much information. It's called MOOC, and through the University of Tasmania, and they run courses like every, I think, twice a year or something like that. The course is called Understanding Dementia, and I think there's a new course that I'm going to take soon. It's called Preventing Dementia or something like that. I could be wrong, but there's another course, but that is very, very good, very informative course to take as well.
And I'll be a little bit of a ranks breaker here. I fell into this program. I did zero research. I was actively, somebody had asked me to be her death midwife. She had a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. We were very actively working together, and somebody that was part of her community was taking the training in Vermont and lived in Vermont. And she said, hey, Willow, did you know that people are being trained to do that? I'm like, what? So I heard about it, looked at it, the program looked great, I took it. But in hindsight, y'all, I think if I had it to do all over again, I might go with Going with Grace, Ayla Arthur's program. Wow, I love her. I love what she's doing, what she's teaching. She's amazing. And if you're not following her on Facebook, she does these 1-minute videos that are both hilarious and poignant about preparing for death. And yeah, I have a lot of admiration, and I think I will actually take their program at some point. It is a bit more expensive, but my suspicion is highly worth it. Thanks for asking, Michelle. Are there other questions or resources people are looking for?
Or even curiosity about how we do things virtually, or how to access us, or anything in between, anything about the grief, death, and dying anxiety support as well.
I would like to ask a question. French native, speaking English most of the time, and living in Germany. I'm an expat wife, if I can say that like this, or expat woman. What would you require from us if we wanted to join the network? Because I am really interested in the virtual aspect of it, because I move all the time. And I'm a doula in training. I am training with Lifespan. I don't know if you know it, but I'm willing to take way more training. I have a background as a nurse, ICU nurse, but I may move to Singapore in a few months' time. So I was thinking, what would you ask from a doula to join your network and be part of it?
That is a wonderful question, and thank you for bringing it to the table, because we actually are looking for international doulas, multilingual doulas. That is something really important to us. So if you would shoot us an email, then we can kind of get really into it. We do require a yearly payment to cover our costs just for running the network, for paying for the technology, our website, et cetera. And then we go from there, and clients are able to book with you directly through our network.
Right. And I'm going to post a link to our contact us on our website. For those interested, click on that link and put it in the message, and say you were here and everything like that, and we will take it from there. So I am sending that now.
And we do also require all of our doulas to carry an insurance policy, which is now available, and we can provide where we get ours. It is not terribly expensive, but it is pretty crucial to have, just because we are working within some delicate spaces.
Is that an international assurance, or is that an American one?
Both. Emily, would you like to answer that, since you just did it internationally?
It's unclear. I had to get my different UK insurance, so I think it varies by country actually. So you'd have to just I think all insurances are gonna not have death doula listed on their docket. So you'd have to go and contact them and actually describe what you do, and they can guide you to the right insurance for you. But that's what I had to do in the UK.
Okay. And I just quickly have two other questions actually. If we were interested in joining the network, and you were interested in our background, would you be willing to be mentor for a time being when we are still in training, or do we have to be certified before coming to you?
Is it all right if I answer?
Go for it.
So as I said before, certification is very sort of squishy in this area, I think. So we are going to be having our own network-wide kind of specifications and interview process. That's something that we can talk about in the future, but I think there is room for entertaining that idea, certainly.
Yeah, we're pretty
I'm just going
open.
to.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask another question to Willow, but it's okay. I'm listening.
I was just going to say we're very open to growing this network and to creating the most diverse network we can. So it is certainly going to be on a case-by-case basis. And like Emily said, we'll have our own criteria, but please do reach out to us.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And Willow, can I just ask, and then I'll shut up. You mentioned the Morbid Death deck, or Morbid Death discussion deck. I tried from Germany to receive the deck, the Death deck, but it's only available in America and Canada. So do you know if there's a way we can receive this other deck? Because I'd never heard about it before you mentioned it. And it's difficult in Europe to receive that. So
Let me just see what if their website shows if they ship elsewhere.
okay, thank you.
I see someone asked about the insurance, if it's professional liability insurance. I do believe that that's what it technically is. I'm going to put the link out for CM&F Group, which is the insurance that we use, and I'm fairly certain that, let me just double check. Yeah, it is professional liability insurance. Good question. Thank you.
And CM&F actually does have one specifically for end-of-life doulas, which is something that's pretty new. But they do have a category just for us.
And Estella, I'm going to put the website for the deck in there, and they have a contact section on there. So maybe give that a go and see how it goes. I know shipping is terribly expensive, right? Like you'd probably pay 3 times more for the deck just to ship it.
Exactly. But I also know that sometimes if we are a certain number of us ordering them, they will reduce the price. So if we can create a network where people order together, and maybe we have to wait 1 month, but it doesn't matter. But the other one, the other deck, they don't. It's only America and Canada, which is very sad.
Well, we do have DHL here, which is also a German shipping company, DHL. So it might be possible to ask them if they can ship it through that company, because that should come to Germany. But yeah, good luck with that.
I will contact them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions, stories, anything?
And does anyone have any questions about what is a death doula, or how does it work, or how can we help you? Because I know a lot of people here are familiar, but for the people who aren't, there's no question that is not worth asking.
I just have 1,000 questions, which is why I'm not starting, because I have so many questions. I've been reading about this after several deaths in our family, and realizing that it's not something we all do well. It's something we get to as if we didn't think anyone was ever going to die. And then it comes to us that our loved ones are in the hospital and nobody knows what to do. And so it's something I'm very interested in doing. But one question I still, when people ask me about it and I talk to them about it, I still can't quite say, what is the difference between hospice and being a death doula? I'm sorry, I can't articulate that, but if you could help me.
Sure. Well, that's a great, do you want to take that, Emily?
Well, you go ahead if you'd like. I just love that question because it's so, we hear it so often, and I just don't feel silly, or I think it's a great question. It's one that I certainly had even when I started training as a doula. So
go ahead, Emily, go for it.
Well, I like to think about it as I'm kind of some kind of fluid water amongst all of these different healthcare professionals and loved ones and friends. So we are there to be kind of a fly on the wall and just such a a space holder for these moments. And when we are needed, we come and, you know, offer our expertise and our support to them. So hospice operates under these professional umbrellas that sometimes doulas can go outside of. So that's where I think that we can really shine, well, actually not shine, but be assisting through actually not being the star of the show. So I think that that's where we can really assist. And I think like a hospice has social workers, they have chaplains, as Willow was saying, they have medical capacity as well. And we are, yeah, that running water between that can offer poetry, song, other resources, a hand to hold, explaining what's happening within the death process, saying how we can help with home funerals and green burials, how to save money, all of these things that maybe hospice can't feel comfortable operating within these spaces.
Also, one of the biggest differences is that hospice provides medical care and administers medication. And as doulas, that is something we absolutely do not do. Even if you have a background in nursing, even if you are a nurse, as a doula, we do not administer medication. What we can do is if our client, if the dying person is not comfortable, if it seems apparent that there needs to be an adjustment in medication, then we will advocate on their part, and we can help to connect hospice and the patient and to kind of bring any gaps together that we need to help coordinate with the family and with the healthcare. So again, like Emily said, like water and like a bridge, that's kind of the big difference, but that is important that as doulas, we do not administer medications or healthcare.
We also have more ability to be creative in the space. So assistance with legacy projects and things like that. We can offer a lot of time and space for things like that that a hospice team might not be able to offer.
That's the biggest difference where I am. I'm in a pretty rural area, and hospice sends generally a social worker once a week, a chaplain once a week if they want it. The nurse will come by depending on where they are in the stage. It could be once a month, and then eventually once a week, and then maybe she comes every day or they come every day. And for me, the thing that I've noticed the most is that people need care coordination almost more than anything else. They need somebody that's just connecting this person's instructions to this person who's coming in to give care, making sure that all of this is trackable and easy for people to fall into and understand the situation when they walk in. And I can be there as a doula, I can be there for hours. Hospice can't. And out here, what hospice does is they have a separate list of people that are folks who can sit vigil or can just companion someone. And it's a private list that they give their patients because they're not comfortable with employment agencies that do this kind of stuff, and they've had negative experiences. So they want people who are sort of vetted. And when I got on my very first one with Charlottesville, within a week, their manager called and asked me how many counties I was willing to work in. I mean, they need this kind of support for people. And I did not realize that there was such a big gap. And it makes sense. If somebody's dying at home and people are working outside of the home, how do they manage that for a long illness? How do they manage that for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year and a half? You know, they can't be all, do all, hold all. And just knowing somebody else is there saying, it's okay, we've got this. And here's the resources, it's okay, we've got this. And sometimes just being the grounding force is some of the biggest work we do. It's just presence and open-hearted, grounded, not too empathic compassion. Ah, salute, Michelle. Wow. We're in the same town, just learned.
Thank you for those answers. It's a bit, I mean, it's a bit vague, but I think when you put it into practice, then you can really, I can see in situations I've been in where I would fit if this were, you know, people nowadays, you know, you have family members spread all over the country. Not everybody can be in some place. Sometimes you have to update people on how someone is doing in hospice or in the hospital. And, you know, the family is too tired to give one more update about how the family member is doing. And, you know, of course, hospice doesn't do that. So I can absolutely see where you would fit in these ways that hospice, from what you've said, clearly doesn't. So thank
Doulas
you.
also specialize what their offerings are. So some doulas provide services that others don't. And that's another thing that's kind of fascinating. You find the right people for the right services, but not every doula does all the things.
And that's also one of the benefits of our network is that you can get more than one doula, you know, to fit your needs, and that we're all here to support you.
Jules?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hesitant to dive in. Am I unmuted? Yeah.
Yes.
So my daughter's been dying for 8 years. Actively, quickly, in the last few months, in the last 6 months. And I've been starting to get connected with, when the kids were young, I had them, you know, we all did classes at the Psychic Institute and learning about our energy, and, you know, it was different tools, but the owners of the Institute were death doulas. And I've been attracted. It's just interesting to be listening, and at the same time that my daughter is dying, to be feeling like, you know, I want to be there for other people as well. You know, she's the resources. I mean, I just have so many opinions about how we have fallen through the cracks, and how, so she's with palliative now. She's still wanting to live, but I don't know why. And that's something I'm working with someone on an energetic level, finding out, like, you know, why won't she let go? She is suffering. She's attached to everything you can imagine. And she's lost all her independence, and, you know, starting to, you know, I can see like her dignity. She's at Anschutz today with, I don't know, pulmonary, I don't know, I can't take her to appointments because I can't get her in the car now. She has to be carried. And so my husband is having to do all of that. We're trying to get, you know, fundraising for a van, and, you know, like, it's just happening so fast. And I just look at her and I think, you know, her quality of life comes with her CNA that comes 3 times a week to bathe her, and her PT that massages her, and her OT. It's like those have become her best friends. I mean, naturally, you know, where they can talk about, I mean, medical, that's all she knows. And I think, you know, I'm preparing myself, but I don't know how to prepare her. She's not, I mean, we've talked about death a lot, and she has her directive, and we've done all of that, but that's more physical. You know, the spiritual part, you know, just letting go. And you know, I feel like she's holding on, maybe because she knows, you know, it's harder for those that are left behind. But, and she and I are, you know, because I've been like her caretaker, our relationship has suffered. She's not the person right now that wants to talk and be with me. Like there's anger, and I feel like that has to do with something about her transitioning, like the anger toward her mother, and she's adopted, and it would be great for her to have someone to talk about like the spiritual part of dying. But it's not me that, you know, I'm not the one that
I don't know if we want to go. What sort of spiritual practice does she have at the moment, just out of curiosity? And if you don't want to go into it right now, that's totally.
Yeah. I mean, nothing really in particular. I think we've all, our family is spiritual, but we don't have, you know, a place of worship. We, you know, maybe more Buddhist and more just, you know, we talk about like past lives. She and I feel like have some heavy karma together, and you know, it's been intense. I don't know if you guys know the goddess Kali Ma.
Very well.
So when I was adopting her, the name Kali, it came in capital letters in my dream, and we called her Callie. Her middle name is Margaret. She's this tiny Vietnamese powerhouse. And today, in like an hour, I'm getting a Kali Ma tattoo because she's been a force in my life for 23 years. And it's been all about life and death, and you know, just shedding the ego and being with what's real. So as for religion or spirit, she's wise. She's very, very wise, and she is not afraid to die.
Right. I will say, I worked with a gentleman who had extreme end-of-life anxiety. He did not have a strong spiritual practice, which is fine. That's just where he was. But one of the things, I did a ceremony with him, and afterwards when we were talking, nobody had talked to him about acceptance and just what it requires to be in that space, and how it's not just a one-time thing of, oh, I accept and moving on, but actually something that if you need to, you have to do it over and over and over again. And that's just one thing that comes up with that, you know, comes to mind when you talk about that, and just where she's at as far as just accepting things and working in that space a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah.
I also wanted to reflect to you that you said that you felt this desire to help other people in this process. And I don't know if Daniel, Andrea, and Emily had this experience, but every single person in my class, end-of-life doula training, had some profound, intense, often tragic experiences with death. And one of the things that brought them to the work was seeing where the gaps were that they wanted to fill.
Yeah.
So many people brought this like souls of steel, like just so resilient, so amazing what some of the folks had been through. So I think your response is very normal to want to do that, because I think most of us got here
well,
through a vehicle like that.
The seed was planted many years ago, and I see flyers for death doulas, and I'm always attracted to it, yet maybe terrified, you know, excited and terrified.
And you're also in the impossible task of being the caregiver that kind of ends up wearing the target, you know, like you're doing the good things and you're being open-hearted and compassionate and you're still getting that rawr. That's also a really normal dynamic, you know. And another thing that virtual or in-person doulas can relieve is just breaking that dynamic for a little bit and just changing like who's in the room, how the conversation is going, what people are talking about, just to completely kind of like disrupt some of those patterns that can just get chronic. And especially when the care is chronic and it's constant. It's tough not to rub up against each other. And it's great to have other folks who can come in and bring a little bit of smoothing and soothing.
And absolutely no pressure at all, Jules, but I live probably 10 minutes from you. So you have some support locally if you would like it.
I would like it.
Okay, then we can reach out after this if that's okay with you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing and being open and being willing to be vulnerable with such a tender place and a tender spot. This is one of the things that we were talking about in the beginning about making it less taboo and opening up these spaces to have these conversations, even though they are tender and they are hard, but they are necessary. And the more we can kind of do this, the more we can support each other.
Yeah. Well, and I find as a mother whose child is dying, me talking about it as a natural process of life, people don't want to talk about it.
We do.
People don't want to talk about it. I know. It's like, so I keep that to myself, and it's a pretty big part of life, part of my life. It's everything right now.
And, you know, that is something that we hear from a lot of people. I had a client that just used to refer to me as her best friend. And she's like, you're the person that I come talk to about death because I think all my friends are sick of hearing about it, or sick of hearing that I'm grieving, or that I'm mourning, or that I don't know what I'm doing, or that today I completely lost my shit, or today I had a moment of joy. Because that's something also that's very important, that in the process of grief, people get really stuck in not wanting to allow themselves to let some joy in, because it can feel kind of weird. And that is also important. And so I kind of loved that she said, you are my best friend. And that's what we're here for, to do that and to talk about it as much as we possibly can.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you.
Absolutely.
And maybe you meeting Colleen.
I would love that.
Nice.
Looks like we have about 3 minutes left. Are there any other questions that anybody wants to ask, or resources that people are looking for? Leah, are you?
Unmute. All right, I just unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. I just want to say thank you for putting this on and connecting all of us here. I'm a social worker by profession. I live in Michigan, and I just want to assure you, Willow, Andrea, Emily, and Danielle, that the work you're doing is so divinely guided and so divinely placed. I'm sure you feel that, and I'm just here to affirm that. We're creating a community that will cover the lifespan. And I've been addressing the different parts and pieces. So the placement of this call and this connection and hearing Jules talk about her daughter is just, it gives me great joy and great hope that we are mobilizing as death advocates. And it's a difficult, delicate, topic, but so necessary. Especially COVID was maybe the impetus, but what's to come, I think this is just we're at the precipice. So I thank you. Your resources are tremendous. You've inspired me to really lean in and expand what we see here, and just deep bow to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. And if you are in a position somewhere within your social services where you see an opening where we might be able to be helpful to send technology, please do contact us and let us know. 'Cause we are
Absolutely.
excited to grow this as well.
We
Sure,
also have
absolutely.
flyers for different facilities that might find that useful. It's just they're beautiful two-sided flyers. If anybody happens to go into hospices or goes into care facilities and wants some of those, let us know. We'll
Sure.
send you a few.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be in touch. My friend Marty is on the call as well. And the placement of our presence here today is huge. So know that you are rippling out into an area. I mean, we're just two people here on the phone, but I will tell you, it's very, you're making an impact. So you will be hearing from us. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
All the
Leah.
best.
And
You're welcome.
we can also provide educational programs for your jobs, families,
Sure.
advanced care
Awesome.
directive parties.
Hey, well, my mantra is work smarter, not harder. And you guys have set up a beautiful template of resources, and I can feel the essence in all of your voices. It goes beyond the tangible. And just hearing Jules talk, I don't know if anyone saw off to her left what was in her video. Could you guys see that? And I'm hoping Jules is still on the call, but I saw the presence of something very special in her when she was on the video chat. So I think there's a lot of parts and pieces that we bring to awareness for the clients and the families, that they aren't alone, and that's not just through our presence. So it's good stuff. Good stuff. So thank you.
Thanks, Leah, and thanks everybody so much for attending this. We will be emailing you some websites and resources, and in the meantime, we're wishing you a real good life until you die. And then when you die, to die a good death.
And then if anybody actually has anything they would like to see us cover in a future death salon, please let us know. We want to know what questions you have, what topics you want to deep dive into, because this community building and this kind of sharing is something that's very, very important to us.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a last question? Can we find you all on LinkedIn, or you're not?
I'm not.
We are not on LinkedIn yet. It is something we have talked about, but we are certainly open to joining that. But you can find all of us on the Virtual Death Doula .net, and I will put that.
Website.
Yeah, I'll put that in our chat.
We have
Okay, brilliant.
Facebook as well.
Oh, yep, we have a thank you.
We also have a grief and death society.
For some reason, Emily's going in and out, but she was sharing that on Facebook, not only do we have a Virtual Death Doula Facebook page, but we also have a Virtual Death Doula grief, death, and anxiety support page. That's a lovely place that you can just kind of come, and we keep it a safe space. We monitor it very carefully, and it's a place to kind of ask open questions, to be with. There's both people that are doulas, interested in becoming doulas, and people that are working through grief, working through dying, all of the things. So that's something also that you can find us on. And thank you all so much for showing up and sharing your very important and precious time with us.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.